mean, pick your poison with that defense.
9 to noon.
Oh, well. I knew we was going to beat them clowns.
I knew we was going to beat them clowns. Welcome back to 9 to noon. Ben Goessling, the Scribe, beloved Scribe. Each and every Tuesday, 9 to noon. Crowd loving it. At Ben Goessling via Twitter. Newsletters, YouTube videos, and more. All courtesy of Standard Heating and Air and standardheating.com. And here comes the Scribe. How do you think the New Orleans... I'm going to start outside of the Covenant. Good morning.
Good morning.
How do you think, unless something happened, I didn't see it within the last hour.
To my knowledge.
Yeah. How do you think the New Orleans Saints feel right now? I mean, coach is backing out of interviews with them.
Yeah.
The only team in the cycle sans a head coach, and their 2024 offensive coordinator, Clint Kubiak, bolts for Seattle to become the offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
How are they feeling down there Bayou Way? And good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, especially when they're about to host the Super Bowl. I'm sure the owners would like to have a better look for the overall state of their team than they have at the moment. I mean, you know how these things work with the Super Bowls. There's a lot of pride for the ownership group of the team that is hosting the Super Bowl. It's one of these events where everybody in the league is there. All of the other members of the membership, as they call themselves, all the other owners are there, and you're trying to show off everything between your city, your stadium, your team, to the extent that, I mean, it's even better if your team is in the Super Bowl, but there is everybody's looking at us element of hosting a Super Bowl. And I can remember that when the Vikings had it. It's just, you want to be at your best because everybody's watching. In a sense, to paraphrase Kevin O'Connell, your best is required.
Right.
So I think there is a little bit of, everybody's going to be asking you, hey, how's that coaching thing going? And you want to have probably a better answer to give than, well, yeah, we've had a lot of people backing out and our OC left, and people aren't sure about the overall state of the organization, but we'll get it figured out. I mean, that's not the way you want to be going into those cocktail parties. So, yeah, I'm sure they're not thrilled about that part of things right now.
All right. So if Eagles offensive coordinator Kellen Moore takes this job, and I believe he's interviewing with the Saints today or tomorrow, I think it's virtually. If Kellen Moore takes this job, it's simply to elevate to becoming a head coach, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because it's pretty sure that the situation down there is, it's pretty dire. Like I read this from Barstool yesterday. The Saints are in salary cap hell with an aging roster and no solution to the quarterback position. Derek Carr, Taysom Hill, Cam Jordan, DeMario Davis, and Honey Badger Tyrann Mathieu count a combined $113 million against the cap in 2025. And they're in the twilight of their careers.
Sounds like the Vikings in 2021.
So if I'm Kellen Moore's agent, how does one's agent protect his guy given those conditions?
Yeah, I mean, the easy answer would be to say, hey, wait a year and don't take this job, I suppose. But if you want to take a job, if you want to say, this is my moment, my team's in the Super Bowl, my offense is playing well, my stock is as high as it's going to get, you probably have to go in looking for, I would think, a fair amount of guaranteed. I mean, coaching contracts are guaranteed, but you have to be looking probably for a fair amount of upfront money, saying, let me get, whether it's upfront cash or just higher salaries those first couple of years. When I'm going to really be in it, I want to know that I'm taken care of financially. I would think that's going to be a lot of the discussion because, that is going to be a major turnaround. And when you talk about being in salary cap hell, they've been in salary cap hell for 15 years. I mean, the Drew Brees things, they did a lot of those where they put void years on them and then redo his deal just about every year. They still don't seem like they've completely come out of that. And Drew Brees has been gone for a long time. And I know there are other contracts that have played into it. Derek Carr, some of the aging veterans that you mentioned is part of it. But that is a team that whenever somebody says the salary cap is not real, that is the counter argument to that, because that's the team that has paid the price for moving money around and not having a good way to handle it, or not being able to have successful teams come out of it in a very long time. So, that is as bad of a situation as I think you'll find in the league. I mean, the ownership group has changed when Tom Benson died a few years ago, and there's been some changes there, and I think Mickey Loomis is still the GM, but it just seems like a lot of things that need to get refreshed and kind of shaken up there. So, yeah, if you're taking that job, I think you'd have to go in with your eyes open, and I would hope your agent is saying, let me make sure that I come out of this with a fair amount of cash right away so that if I do get fired, I've at least done well enough for myself financially.
Why do you think the Dallas Cowboys waited until 8:45 p.m. Friday to announce, ladies and gentlemen, we have hired Brian Schottenheimer as our new head coach, 8:45 on a Friday night? I mean, if the scribe is the scribe for the Dallas Morning News, holy cow. I mean, you're working on that thing until Saturday morning.
Oh, of course you are. Yeah, you're working that until way past midnight and way past your newspaper deadlines. I mean, that gets updated for the web at that point. But, yeah, was it not done until then? I guess that's the charitable answer. I don't think you're doing, I hope you're not doing Friday News Dump with your head coach.
Right.
Friday News Dumps typically happen about 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
When it's, everybody's about to get ready for the weekend and people aren't watching it. I mean, 8:45 is, if you're doing a Friday News Dump, that is an extreme Friday News Dump. So,
and it generally involves things negative.
Correct.
Like we've suspended so-and-so 3 games.
Yep.
That's our only comment.
Yep. There's a lot of that, kind of hoping it gets buried in the weekend news cycle or lack of a news cycle. So that does not communicate a ton of confidence if that was what it was. Maybe it just didn't get done until then. But yeah, then the weird press conference with Jerry Jones and saying this is a big risk. He's got no coaching experience, which I think he was trying to paint as a positive of, look, I'll take risks. I'm not going to just go for the veteran coach that's been through it a couple times. I'm willing to think outside the box. But his way of portraying that did not exactly communicate what he was hoping to, I don't think. So yeah, that one is, both of those teams, man, it's, there's probably a reason those were the last 2 jobs to be filled because they weren't as attractive as maybe some of the other ones would have been.
If Jerry hires Deion Sanders, there ain't no way it's a Friday night 8:45 press conference.
No way.
So it's almost like they're embarrassed about this.
Yeah, it does have that vibe. And maybe there were other reasons for it, but it does communicate the message that, well, we had to get this done, so we'll announce it, but we're not terribly excited about it.
The Kansas City Chiefs are favored in Super Bowl 59. Does that surprise you?
No, I don't think it does. I mean, it's like 1.5 points, I think I saw.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's probably about where I would expect it to open. I mean, it's the 2-time defending champs, the quarterback that's been through it. They beat them 2 years ago with not all of the same pieces, but a lot of the same pieces. So, yeah, I think that's probably where it starts, and we'll see how much the line moves. It's going to be interesting with this one. I thought the Bills had as good of a chance to beat them as they've ever had, and the Chiefs still find a way out of it. But they got a few calls that I think that went their way, and obviously the 4th down stop is the most prominent of those and the one that's going to be the most discussed. But they made the plays they had to. I mean, Steve Spagnuolo is he's still one of the best at it. I mean, that blitz he dialed up on Josh Allen at the end, they didn't have an answer for it. So, yeah, I think that's probably about where I would have it. I think I'm probably, we'd have to do this until next week, but I'd probably pick the Chiefs just because they've been through it, and Patrick Mahomes tends to find an answer in those moments. I think the Eagles have as much talent as anybody to take them down, but until somebody does, I think it's a safe pick to ride with the Chiefs.
So there, with teams around the NFL, but specifically the Minnesota Vikings, there is going to be an off-season purge.
Yep.
And as I've said the last couple of days, that not every purge has to be flipping an entire roster.
Yeah.
So there's purging and replenishing, something with which we are very familiar around here. And when it comes to the remodeling or the replenishing, that there's money to spend to get quality players from other teams, like they did last year with the Gink is on fire, Grenard, Cashman, and so on. So knowing that there's going to be some form of that purge, would you predict week 1 next season, Minnesota Moving Company, offensive line, left to right, Darisaw, new starter, O'Neal?
I think it's possible. I mean, I think new starters at the guard spots for sure. Bradbury will be an interesting one because the reason I could see them saying, let's bring him back, especially if it's JJ McCarthy, the veteran center who has spent a lot of time setting protections, obviously, very smart guy, has been in this offense a long time. He would be, I think, a little bit of a bridge. We want to talk about a bridge center, I guess, but he would make life a little bit easier for J.J. McCarthy in terms of setting protections, figuring out where all of that is coming from. And that may be a useful tool for a rookie quarterback, or effectively a rookie quarterback, a quarterback that hasn't played before. But we do run into the same things with Garrett Bradbury just about every year, where big, powerful defensive tackles overwhelm him. And will they say, hey, even if we have all of the benefits of your intelligence, your acumen in this offense, your communication skills, we need to go with somebody else who's able to hold up against some of these defensive tackles a little more effectively, and then we'll build the rest of it out from there. That would be the one that would make me wonder there. I mean, they like Michael Juergens a lot. I think they see him as a future starting center, whether it's him or whether you go get somebody else. I am interested to see that one. I think the guards for sure. I think they're going to invest at guard. I think they'll spend at least one of those guard spots. But then, yeah, do they do something different at center? I think it's going to be a very interesting component of that whole interior offensive line remodel.
And doesn't the money a bit play in Bradbury's favor as well?
Yeah, it does.
I mean, the fact that you're only getting him, I think it's between $5 and $6 million or something like that. We were talking about Trey Smith and just kind of you think about how measured this spending spree is going to have to be. If you are going to invest in those two guard spots, you know, the things you are giving up as you laid out in good detail, maybe the fact that, you know, from a dollars and cents standpoint, if you can get one more year out of him at that spot while bolstering the guys around him, maybe the team thinks that they can get by with that as well. That
may be the play, because that guard spot is going to be expensive. That could be $15, $16 million a year if they go sign somebody like that, maybe even a little more than that if it's Trey Smith. And then you got to think about corner, because the only guy signed at corner is Mekhi Blackman, who's coming off an ACL. So they're going to have a need there, whether it's bringing Byron Murphy back or going to invest other places. I think they would probably have a lot of interest in bringing Byron Murphy back, but that won't be cheap.
Yep.
And then you have to probably think about, I would think, something on the defensive line. Maybe that's a draft solution, maybe a defensive tackle somewhere in there. But if you want to spend on one of those spots, and, you know, corner, it's probably not just one, because you have to go replenish a lot of those things. And maybe you sign Griffin back cheap. Maybe Gilmore wants one more year. I think Gilmore will probably think about retirement. But there's a lot of spots in the secondary to fill, and that is not a cheap position to do it. They also probably have to think about at least a temporary solution at left tackle, because Darisaw will be back, but do you want to go into the season with him as your only option when he's coming off of that ACL? Given the timing of it, I would think they'll at least try to find something of a temporary solution there to hold things down. And if that's in free agency, that's not necessarily a, you know, veteran minimum type player either. So there's a lot of needs. I mean, they have 38 guys on the roster, I think, for next year. So there's money to spend.
Jeez.
But there's a lot of holes to fill and a lot of places to spend some money. Like, the corners and the guards, those aren't cheap places to do it.
And with replenishing, with purging and replenishing, the unfortunate part, you know, for those who are asked to do this, you know, as the purge goes, there can be some restructuring.
Yeah.
I mean, people coming up and asking you to change your money.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
It happens every single year,
Yep, it does.
every single place. A little different here right now. Like, are there any, like, who would be the candidates for restructuring? And I don't know why the tight end's going to catch a stray here.
Yeah.
But he was the first one I immediately went to the spot rack thing or whatever.
Yep.
TJ Hawkinson, you know, it's always comfortable looking at other people's money.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a thing. I mean, I would say him because they did put a void year in that deal when they did it. And part of the reason for that was anticipating a future restructure for one reason or another, whether it's, hey, we think that we need to do it because your play has mandated that, or because we have other places that we're spending money and we need to shove some money into the future and we like you enough. We know you're going to be around, so let's just shove a little bit of it down the road because it won't be dead money per se.
Yep.
It'll be, you know, money you're playing on in a restructured deal at some point down the road. But they did put a void year in there for that express purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So,
okay, what's that mean?
Well, basically it means that if they wanted to do something where you're turning part of his salary into a signing bonus, you know, for one reason or another, whether it's because he's not playing as well or because you want to move money, if you turned I can't even remember what his base salary is, but say it's $8 million and you said, okay, we're going to turn $7 million of that or whatever. Let's make the math easy. Turn $8 million of it into a signing bonus and you have a void year. So you have, 3 years left on his deal or whatever it is. And you have the void year on the end. You can take that $8 million and spread that over the next 4 years, meaning you only keep $2 million of that on your cap right now. You're just pushing it down the road. The void years are fake years in the deal, and that comes back to bite you somewhat down the road. But when the cap keeps going up every year, it basically is an interest-free loan. You're borrowing money from a cap that is going up in the future. So the hit you take is not that big of a deal going down the road. So that void year is in there for some of these cap shell games that they like to play.
Yeah.
So I could see him.
Well, geez, I'm just going through the list right now.
Josh Oliver would be the other one.
Yeah, Josh Oliver. Well, Grenard, he's just entering his second year, but he's got an $18 million base.
I give him more.
Signing bonuses around with a little bump after his 2024.
Yeah.
Let's just get after it. Signing bonuses for everyone.
Well, and Van Ginkel's only signed for another year, I think, right?
Oh, great.
Yeah, so they got to think about probably an extension there, but you could probably drop his number as a result of that.
Yeah, throw a little extension on there. He's going to make 12.
He's got void years in the back.
Who's going to eyeball Andrew Van Ginkel after that season he just said we got to mess with your money?
See, this is where
bump him. And then give him a raise, but then change the cap money if you want to do that.
Well, there's 3 void years on the back end of his.
Yeah, there's a lot you could play with.
Man, Brzezinski.
Well,
we got some A Beautiful Mind type stuff happening right now.
This is my time of year. This is where the 20-year-old rusty accounting degree is the only thing I use it for at this point. Could be like a controller of a company or something making way more money instead I'm a sports writer. But when it's cap season, baby, this is when that accounting degree comes back to help me out.
All the accountants and actuaries just kind of stood up a little straighter in their chairs.
Yep, I see you.
Sharpening their pencils.
I see you guys with your visors and your pencils.
They work the 10 key in their sleep. They are ready to rock.
Yep.
Yeah, and 9 to noon is not your abacus leader. And the host happens to be a person who went to junior college for 5 years and didn't manage to get a degree. So when you explained void...
Can you repeat the part of this stuff where you said all about the things?
I'm glad I have you guys. So from the
service I provide. From
the Purge presentation, it actually meshes with something Emily wrote in the Star Tribune.
Yeah.
Where from the Purge presentation that was for yesterday, we haven't gotten through it yet, did Aaron Jones slow or was the blocking bad? Because analysis like that, blocking for the run.
Yeah.
Analysis like that absolutely is part of the purging process.
Yeah.
And then I see Emily with the Star Tribune wrote about Aaron Jones and Cam Akers wanting to return next season. So how does your analytical, learned scribe mind handicap that situation?
Yeah, I think the question of did Aaron Jones slow or was the blocking bad is an important one because that's going to determine a lot of where they spend money. I think the answer is probably yes to both. I think
they both return.
Well, I think the answer to did Aaron Jones slow or was the blocking bad is yes.
Okay.
I think the blocking was bad. We looked at a lot of analytics I think they had like 70% of their runs in the red zone. They had a guy get hit within a yard of the line of scrimmage. I mean, they were getting stuffed a lot, and we saw it. Obviously, O'Connell didn't call a ton of red zone runs because he knew it. So I think the guards getting better would help, but I also think Jones was playing through a lot of injuries towards the end of the season that probably slowed him down. Do you bring him back? I could see it if it's not terribly expensive. Akers, I would say kind of the same thing. Akers had some runs at the end of the season. I think the big one against the Lions, he gets caught from behind. I kind of remember thinking, a guy with 2 Achilles repairs, that's going to happen. And that ended up being a game where they didn't score a touchdown. So being able to finish that run in the end zone would have been helpful. But whether it's 1 or 2 of those guys back, I think they'll have a lot of interest in Jones coming back on a team-friendly deal, and maybe he wants to do that too. I do think you need to go and find a younger back, maybe with a 3rd round pick or that 5th or something where they acquire.
Need a rookie.
Yeah, you need somebody with a little more dynamic skill set at this point. I think that's a need.
Okay, agreed. But as the pigskin purple purge goes in the offseason and looking at the past performances of the last 3 years, is it fair to say the focus for like rubes like us the producer, the announcer, and the scribe. Should our focus be markedly, not just greater, markedly greater on free agency than the draft?
Probably.
Because, I mean, it's the last year's laundry list and past performances would be the A topic.
Yeah.
They only have 4 picks, 5 with a compensatory right now, right?
Yeah, I think it's 3 plus 1 with a compensatory.
Oh,
so I think it's 4 with the comp.
Total of 4 as of now.
That keeps getting better. So there's that where you only have those picks.
Yep.
But you got money.
Yeah.
And a general manager he's the identifiable one, even though, he's going to mention, well, this guy and this guy and this guy and Greg and Demetrius and Ryan and all this.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they all factor into it.
Right.
But the one who gets ripped when there's a bad draft or the one who gets praised when you kill it in free agency like last year's Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah.
Right.
So, was that catching lightning in a bottle last year, or is that the A topic moving forward?
Well, I think they will be aggressive in free agency. There is part of it where you say you have proven performance on the NFL level with the free agents. There's a little bit of that. I mean, the Moneyball thing where baseball GMs will say college players are a better, safer pick in the draft because we've seen them do it against college pitching as opposed to high schoolers. There's a little bit of this, and Kwesi talked about this a little bit last year with free agents, that you know these guys have done it on the NFL level. You're projecting less than you would be with a college player.
Yep.
So there is that benefit, and especially if you find guys who are good deals like they have, I think that is a useful tool in his way of approaching it. The question is, did they catch lightning in a bottle last year, or is that repeatable? I don't know that you want to live in a world that you assume that's repeatable, because they certainly hit a lot of home runs in free agency last year. I don't know that you want to assume that you're going to do that every single time out, because if you miss on those guys, that's an expensive miss. If you miss on a draft pick, it's not really that expensive. I mean,
not that expensive, but it sets you back.
It does. It costs, because the thing you have to do then is go sign somebody in free agency. So the savings you get from a draft pick are lost. But if you can find cheap free agents like they did, or find effective deals in free agency like they did, it helps offset some of it. The problem is if you miss on a free agent and you sign a guy to a big deal and he's bad or he's injured or whatever, that comes with real financial costs that handicap you. I mean, we've seen that happen with the Vikings in the past. And
Michael Pierce, though.
Michael Pierce.
He might be available.
Yeah, and I could go back to,
at him.
I mean, Greg Jennings was probably an example of this, where they cut him after 2 years in that deal. I mean, you can go through any team and find that. Those things leave dead money in their wake. And that's where some of the issue comes in with free agency.
Michael Pierce, man. I mean, he shouldn't have worn a mask during the pandemic. He should have made it a ski mask.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness.
And I'm not, I know he had asthma or whatever, but I mean, you sit out and then you're gone.
Season.
And then for the Ravens, you're changing games with run-stopping defense. Yeah. Happy to be back. I mean, what a ski mask production that was.
That was a wild one.
You leave the Ravens, you get the money, you sit out, you leave, you go back to your former team where you wanted to be in the first place. And then all of a sudden you're playing like a combo between Vince Wilfork and Casey Hampton with a side dish of Pat Williams.
Yeah, and they signed Dalvin Tomlinson a year after that, too. They were going to go with Tomlinson and Pierce as the two guys in the middle of that line. And then I think Pierce, didn't he get hurt? Wasn't there like an elbow?
He was hurt every second he was here.
Yeah, he missed the first season, then he came back, played the first couple of games, and then he was out again.
Yeah, that was great. That was a wild one.
That's Ben Goessling. He's the scribe, courtesy of Standard Heating and Air and standardheating.com. And when we return, some more football conversation. But first,
The Fan wants to give you a chance to put $1,000 in your hand with the National Cash Contest. Go to KFAN.com, enter the keyword check, and you might win $1,000. The keyword is check at KFAN.com.
I'm The Fan.
Wow, wasn't that fun?
The season can't end like that! Hashtag Faith Radio.
Let's go. Let's go, everybody. Let's go. Good morning.
Roughing the passer.
All I can say is, wow.
Hold on to your butts.
Shake what?
shake it up. Shake it up, shake it up, shake it up. That's what happens with a pigskin purge, which is approaching for many teams around the NFL. And welcome back to 9 to noon. It is 10:35. Ben Goessling, Star Tribune, StarTribune.com. This question here, I don't want to catch you off guard with it, but like how do you guys cover the Senior Bowl? Got anybody there?
We won't this week. We've done it in the past. We will probably go heavier with the combine and the owners' meetings.
Yep, understood.
Yeah.
And when you have 4 picks and you come from 24, how do you follow the Senior Bowl? Do you watch stuff, or do you what stories do you read if it's not Andrew, Emily, or whoever down there?
Yeah, I'll read some of the stuff this week of the players that kind of that pop that people say they thought looked good in the practices, and it tends to be more about the practice week than the game.
Right.
But yeah, I'll read some of that stuff as we come through it here and get ready for more of the draft stuff. It'll probably be something that I'm probably not reading in real time. It'll probably be something I'm coming back to as we get closer to draft season and you start to figure out what the needs are and the people they like and the whole thing of they met with so and so at the Senior Bowl. Teams meet with every single player at the Senior Bowl. So the things that you read about, they had a meeting with so and so, it means they must be interested. They meet with everybody.
Right.
It's not something where they're picking and choosing. So keep that in mind.
The Senior Bowl, for yours truly, whether it's radio 9 to noon, KFAN, AM 1130, KFAN, Xerxes Avenue in Bloomington, go crazy, DA and Pooh Bay, or calling Vikings games. It's been a proverbial thorn in my metaphorical side. Yes. Because,
Comes at a weird time.
Well, no, but we'll do what we do. We'll let it happen. Yeah, I might have a sneaky conversation or two. And, you start amassing background, as you say in the business, some names, stuff like that. Well, the two most polarizing and vivid times for me that I was told about players pretty quickly after the Senior Bowl.
Yeah.
No guarantee they were going to take them. But it led me to just like thinking it out the wrong way.
Yeah.
First and foremost was Jake Locker. Okay. I think that was either the year you started the bit or right before it.
It was the year before.
It was the Cam Newton draft.
Yep, the Ponder draft.
Yeah, the Ponder
I started
draft.
in 12. I think that was 11.
Yeah, so, I had heard so many good things about Jake Locker's leadership.
Yeah.
And they're going to take a quarterback. Yeah. So, and then Cam Newton's there with I'm an entertainer.
Yeah.
And everybody's murdering him.
Yeah.
And I hadn't watched a lot of Cam Newton because I don't watch a lot of college football.
Yeah.
So I went so hard down the Jake Locker road. And then, he goes ahead.
Yeah.
What, Tennessee?
Yeah, he went ahead of Ponder.
Okay. So therefore, kind of off the hook here. Might have said he was better than Cam Newton. Might have said that somewhere along the way at 9 to noon's very first combine. Okay. When it was at Lucas Oil, and we were on the concourse.
Yep.
With just Pittsburgh Steelers radio, Kansas City Chiefs. They had team. There were like 3 of us there. That was it.
Yeah.
Secondly, it was a quarterback. What was it?
Russell Wilson was a thing for them.
Nope, that was it. Thank you. That was
the next year.
They coached the team that had Russell Wilson
and Kirk Cousins.
Okay, and the people with whom I'm chatting at that time, same as you,
I had the same conversations,
could not have vocalized how impressed they were with his leadership skills. Hose for an arm, runs like the wind, unassuming, super smart. That is a little on the diminutive side,
right?
So it's like, I'm not like, well, do you look past that and do you take him? That's like, I don't do it that way.
Yeah.
So I amass the information, then I formulate my own opinions, whether they're right or wrong.
Yeah.
But, it's then they don't take Wilson.
They took Josh Robinson with that pick instead.
Right. But, there were a couple of rounds in front of that. Clear. I think he went in the 3rd round.
He was 3rd round, yes. Okay. They took Khalil and Harrison Smith in that draft with the first 2 picks.
And he has some HOF to him.
Yes, he
does.
Whether
people like Russell Wilson or not, he has HOF to him.
I agree with that.
So, but the size, the diminutive nature, 5'10", cutest little thing ever, or whatever it was.
Yeah.
But it's like up to the draft, and then after the draft, I'm like, let me get this straight. Our coaches had him for a full week, fell in love with him, and didn't take him.
Well, the general manager who did not see eye to eye with the coach on everything back then,
Right.
didn't take him.
Okay.
I think that's probably the other piece of it.
Oh, geez.
Was the GM and the coach on the same page on that one? I don't know that they were.
So that's Leslie?
That's Leslie and Spielman.
Okay.
And Leslie ends up coaching 2 more years. I think if they had not had a good year in 12, Leslie might have been gone. They obviously go to the playoffs, and then Leslie's gone after 13.
Yeah, that would be a miss. All right, in closing here, do you, outside of the covenant, do you ever come across people crying NFL conspiracy?
Oh, yeah.
Involving calls, Mahomes, and the calls the Chiefs receive?
Yeah.
It's, well, like, how do you handle it? Because it's in essence, if you think it's a conspiracy, which means the officials are working for the NFL and purposely calling things wrong, for that major media market, Kansas City, Missouri.
Yeah.
All right, 3-2. Calling things wrong. In essence, the accusation is they're fixing games.
Yes.
I can't go there.
Yeah, it's hard to do it. I mean, I think a lot of it is, people kind of see what they want to see, and we've seen the people go off the Tim Donaghy thing in the NBA and say, it must be the same thing. A lot of it is you still have officials working not full time. You have officials who are asked to handle a bigger set of rules every single year and evaluate things on the fly every single year. And sometimes they miss. I mean, we saw it this year. The Sam Darnold face mask against the Rams certainly is an example of this. I thought the spot on the 4th down was bad. I thought it was a first down. But there were a couple of officials coming in from different sides of it. So procedurally, they probably are in a spot where they're going to miss some things. And then when you miss, people say, it must be because it was on purpose. It was rigged. I don't think that's the case. I think there are a lot of things put on those officials' plates, and they're not necessarily in a position to use all of the technology that may be available, because all of that stuff has to get passed at the owners' meetings. If we're going to change the way we officiate things, a lot of that's where that happens. But
unless you're in Glendale and there's a face mask and you can look at the Jumbotron and then drop a flag out of nowhere.
Right.
That's embarrassing.
Yeah, which is not supposed to happen.
Right.
Because that was the thing that the Vikings would have liked to see happen against the Rams the first time. And they said, we can't do that because you cannot drop a flag on replay. That is a rule. But it is one of those things that I wonder if the NFL is going to start to change this, because if you remember the catch rule, we used to do the what is a catch kind of stuff as much as we did.
Des Bryant and Calvin.
Correct. Yeah. The Super Bowl, the year it was here, there was a play in that game between the Patriots and the Eagles that everybody thought, that's not going to be a catch. They're going to overrule this. I think it was for a touchdown. It was in the end zone right in front of me from where I was sitting for the game. And then I remember they said, no, it's a catch. It's a touchdown. It was almost like the NFL in real time said, everybody hates this rule. Let's just start to call it differently on the fly. So you do, when you buzz in officials that are outside of the game, you do have, I think, different sets of information. I realize I feel like I'm giving voice to the conspiracy idea here. I'm not intending to do that, but I do think there are times where they will say a certain rule is going to change and we know it needs to change. So let's try to fix some of these things on the fly. That's maybe not to rig it for one team, but just realizing, hey, we didn't get this right, and we're going to need to go back and make this official later, but we're doing some back of the napkin math now.
Okay, so officials, not referees. Maybe some officials are getting these jobs and ascending too quickly.
That could be.
And they're jumping levels. Officials have not been able to jump for years.
Yeah.
And for whatever the reason, they're being put into positions where they do not belong at this moment.
Yeah, there's some of that, I think. I mean, you've seen a lot of that over the years, and a lot of the discussion when the Fail Mary happened was, that was replacement refs, and that was the regular refs were, I think, he was either on strike or on a lockout, but there was a labor dispute between the officials and the league. And we had the replacement refs at the time.
The Green Bay Seattle Monday Night Football game was epic.
Correct. That was when that was, and I think the dispute between labor and the league ended the next day. I think that got the deal done pretty quickly because that became such a firestorm. But it was, I think a lot of it over the years has been when people are getting these jobs, like you say, when they're newer at it. The thing moves so much faster than college football, and college football moves so much faster than high school football. Being able to officiate and see things on the fly and make decisive calls is a lot. So, yeah, I think there's something to that. There have been a lot of these longer time officials that have retired over the years. I mean, your Ed Hochulys and some of those guys. There is going to be some of that turnover. So maybe you are dealing with a younger set of officials, and some of the mistakes and some of the issues come as a result of that.
The best. Enjoy Apple Valley High School track practice today, and we will talk to you next week.
Sounds good. Thanks.
That's Ben Goessling. He's the scribe. Covers the Minnesota Vikings for the Star Tribune and StarTribune.com. All of that courtesy of Standard Heating and Air. Back after that.
Welcome back. News du Nord. News du Nord. By the way, I apologize for missing that weather report in case you haven't been outside yet. It's in the mid-30s right now. We're going to top out near 45 today. So that's your weather update, 9 to noon, if you don't have an app and you haven't been outside. But News du Nord is brought to you by The Casino at Canterbury Park, CanterburyPark.com. Feeling the felt, poker, blackjack, and table games all year round. And live racing kicking off again in the spring. They got events going on, it feels like, every other weekend all year round. The Casino at Canterbury Park, CanterburyPark.com. We'll start with the Minnesota Timberwolves. The Minnesota Timberwolves have now won 3 straight. They beat the Hawks last night, 100-92. We chatted more detail about this during the opening segment, about the fact that we talked about it as a loser-proof game, heavily undermanned Atlanta Hawks team. Well, no big deal. DeAndre Hunter looked like De'Aaron Fox last night, drops 35 on the Wolves. The Wolves do, with that 17-point lead at the break, find their way to a victory. But we played a portion of Chris Finch's post-game press conference last night, and he was absolutely not happy. Here's a little snippet.
Sit close there in the second half, really down the stretch of that second half. How nice is it to be able to come out on top?
It's not, listen, we made it close. They didn't make it close. That's a totally unacceptable second half of basketball.
So that tells you where the head coach's mind was at in regard to that. Anthony Edwards did have 23 points. Took him a lot of shots to get there. Missed nearly a handful of free throws at the line. Julius Randle, a 20-point game for him and 8 boards. Rudy Gobert, though, we're liking these double-doubles with a couple of swats. And the Minnesota Timberwolves have a day off to think about it before they head down to Phoenix and Utah for a couple of roadies, PA.
Yep, travel day today. Go to Phoenix, a team with whom you're quite comfortable. They match up very well with Phoenix, and I think they should win the next 2 games. So hopefully they can take this 3 in a row and make it 5 in a row, and get past a little of this consternation that popped up after yesterday's game.
Well, so the only thing I'll say about Utah, though, watching a little bit about them, the Utah, obviously the worst team in the West. They fight hard. Have you seen any of that Isaiah Collier?
Nope, just the box scores, Bryce Sensabaugh.
But he's getting a ton of minutes, and they have no vision, it appears, in terms of what that team's supposed to look like to be a competitor. Yeah. But they're kind of a pain in the butt. Right. So they should make it interesting. But yeah, absolutely they should win that game against the Utah Jazz. I was gonna play this. Well, why not? Let's do a little NBA news du Nord here. I do have some things in the NFL. But the Rockets, no fear.
To a man, Thompson, down the lane, Euro step for the win! He got it with 7/10 of a second! He hit the 5-footer! Gathering, Pritchard launches to end the game, it's no good! Off the top of the backboard, and the Rockets win it in Boston!
So that's Amen Thompson with his career-high 33 points last night, and the Houston Rockets nip the Boston Celtics at the buzzer in Boston. And they're second place in the West, PA. Here's how their lineup, though. Again, muddy Western Conference, we get that. A lot of teams are good. But Sengun, 22. Jalen Green, 22. Amen Thompson, 21. And they have Van Vliet, who's 30. And they have Dylan Brooks, who hit 10 threes last night. He's 31.
10 threes?
He did, yeah. Cam Whitmore, he's hurt right now, I believe, or nicked up. He's 20. Jamari Smith is 21. These Rockets are just babies, PA, but they are very game in the West, and they're just a game ahead of the Grizzlies for second in the West, but they're 6 games back from OKC.
Yeah.
And then another NBA nugget here. The Miami Heat have suspended Jimmy Butler without pay.
Yeah. He left to practice.
Yeah, this is his 3rd suspension of the year, I think. Now he's indefinitely suspended. It comes as he was expected to return from his 2nd suspension Monday night against the Magic. but he just decided he wasn't going to practice because the Heat were planning to replace Butler in the starting lineup with Haywood Highsmith for that Magic game.
Right.
He responded by walking out of the morning shoot-around. Miami said in a statement, the suspension is due to a continued pattern of disregard of team rules, engaging in conduct detrimental to the team, and intentionally withholding services. This includes walking out of a practice earlier today. So the mercurial, as you would say, Jimmy Butler, I don't know if they're going to be able to trade him, what they're going to choose to do ultimately with Jimmy, but the tough thing, and we've talked about it in great detail, of course, because of his time here. I love Jimmy Butler.
Me too.
As a player, but it kind of didn't work towards the end in Chicago. It definitely didn't work. Talking about, the practice bits with Layden and Tibbs didn't work here. It got weird in Philly almost right away. Comes down to Miami.
Wow, Philly, that's right.
The only, other than Pops, if there's another coach in the NBA at a high level that deserves to be lauded all the time, anytime, it is Eric Spoelstra. Mm-hmm. And you can't figure out, you go to the finals, and this team is doing everything they can around you to make this a constant Eastern Conference contender, and you can't figure it out with Spoelstra. I mean, the end is near, it feels like, for Jimmy, of course, by age and time served and all of that, but my goodness, suspended for a third time this year. The Moody one is working his way out of South Beach in a hurry.
Well, there was a very interesting back and forth between Shaquille O'Neal and then Kenny Smith and Charles Barkley. Recently. It was over the weekend. I'm pretty sure it was over the weekend, but I didn't know those guys work weekends. Shaq was staunch in Jimmy has outperformed this. He wants this. They won't budge. I would do the same thing and not show up. Well, Kenny and Charles just destroyed him.
Yeah.
Let's just be honest here, Shaq. I mean, you and Jimmy have enough bleep you money to not show up. Okay, but I mean, let's think about the people to whom we're chatting right now, who may be in this situation.
Sure.
Where they feel like their lot in life has exponentially been underappreciated financially, but they can't step away for a week or two and make you play your hand.
Right. Haywood Highsmith has to show up.
Haywood Highsmith has to be in the starting lineup. Yes, Bo, 3 bags full. Yes, Bo, have you any wool? So it really got down to a work ethic and respect conversation about respecting the blessings and what you have, working through it, waiting till the time everybody in the universe has to wait till a contract's up or an off season or a break, and not doing it this way. Shaq would not budge. He would not budge. It's disrespectful. And I wouldn't show up either. I was on the side of Kenny Smith mostly and Charles Barkley a little bit. But see, I just
don't get it. The Heat are
Jimmy's causing there, man.
The Heat are comfortably a playoff team, and it just in singular moment fashion, I think you could look at instances throughout Jimmy's career and be like, Jimmy's an upcoming star. Mm-hmm. Jimmy is the man. He does. We need to accommodate the man on this team. Absolutely, there are moments like that. Your best players, you want them to make sure they feel like that we know they're the best players.
Right.
But this is multiple stops now. This is
more than some have rules and some have guidelines.
Yeah, it feels like a lot of self-inflicted drama in a lot of cases, a lot of self-inflicted conflict.
Yes, sir.
And it's not going well for Jimmy. Let me hit you with a couple of football bits before we close News to Nord.
Yeah, and the surprise guest is calling earlier, I was told. So we should break any time now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's just do this then. I can hold these NFL bits because they're a bit evergreen. Mm-hmm. News to Nord brought to you by Canterbury, the casino at CanterburyPark.com. And we're going to transition, I believe, to hockey during the final hour.
Yep, Mick Tocchet, Pat Micheletti's is going to be in studio, and we also are going to be getting a call here soon from a member of the Minnesota Wild sharing some news. That's all we're going to say right now until we know exactly what's happening. But that's what we're going to do, 9 to noon. It's 11 o'clock. Be right back.